In this video, we'll master 5 essential JavaScript methods: Array.includes, Object.entries, String.trim, Math.random, JSON.parse. Let's dive in. Let me introduce you to Array.includes. This method is essential for checking if a specific element exists within an array without writing complex loops. It simplifies your code by returning a simple Boolean value. Mastering this makes condition checking much cleaner and more readable. When you call Array.includes, JavaScript iterates through the array elements starting from index 0. It uses the same value 0 algorithm to compare the search element with every item in the array. This means it checks for strict equality but treats nan as equal to nan. If a match is found, it immediately returns true, otherwise, it returns false after checking all elements. You will often use this method when building search features to verify if a user selection is valid. It is also perfect for filtering data or checking permissions in access control lists. Now let's look at the code step by step. First, we initialize a constant array containing 3 string elements representing different fruit names. Then, here, we call the includes method to check if the string banana exists in the array. Then, next, we check for grape, which is not present, to demonstrate a false result. Then, we print the first result to the console, which will display true since banana was found. Then, finally, we print the second result, showing false because the grape element is missing. Finally, this comment indicates the expected Boolean output that appears in the developer console. That covers Array.includes. Now, let's move on to the next powerful array method. Let me introduce you to Object.entries. This static method transforms an object into an array of its own enumerable property key-value pairs. It's vital because objects aren't directly iterable like arrays, so this method bridges that gap effectively. You'll find it indispensable whenever you need to process object data using array methods. When you invoke Object.entries, JavaScript iterates through the object's own properties. For every property found, it creates a 2-element array containing the property key as a string and its corresponding value. These arrays are then collected into a single master array, preserving the insertion order of the keys. Finally, this new nested array structure is returned, leaving the original object completely untouched. You will often use this when you need to filter or map over an object's properties, which isn't possible directly on the object itself. It's also perfect for converting objects into maps or preparing data for specific visualization libraries that require array formats. Now let's look at the code step by step. First, we begin by declaring a constant variable named user and initializing it as an object. Then, inside the object, we define a property called name and assign it the string value Alice. Then, next, we add an age property to the object and set its numeric value to 30. Then, we finish defining the object by adding a role property with the value admin. Then, this semicolon marks the end of our object declaration statement for the user. Then, we call Object.entries passing our user object, converting it into an array of arrays. Finally, we log the resulting entries variable to the console to inspect the output. That covers the basics of Object.entries. Next, let's look at how to reverse this process. Let me introduce you to the String.trim method. This is a fundamental tool for cleaning up user input and text data. It eliminates unnecessary whitespace from the beginning and end of strings. You'll find it indispensable for ensuring data consistency in your applications. When you invoke trim, JavaScript scans the string from left to right to find the first non-whitespace character. Then, it scans from right to left to find the last non-whitespace character. Everything outside these 2 boundary points is identified as whitespace and removed. The method treats spaces, tabs, and line breaks as whitespace. Finally, it returns a new string, leaving the original completely untouched. You will use this most often when validating form fields like usernames or email addresses. It is also useful for sanitizing text fetched from external APIs or database records where formatting might be inconsistent. Now let's look at the code step by step. First, we define a variable containing a string with extra spaces on both sides. Then, we call the trim method on our variable to remove the whitespace. Then, we log the original string to prove that it remains unchanged. Then, we log the new variable to display the clean result without spaces. Then, this comment shows the actual console output for the first log. Finally, this comment displays the output for the second log showing the trimmed string. That covers the String.trim method. Up next, we will explore how to trim whitespace from just one side of a string. Let's explore the Math.random method. This built-in function is crucial for introducing unpredictability into your code, allowing you to generate random numbers effortlessly. It is the foundation for creating dynamic user experiences in games. When you invoke Math.random, the engine calculates a decimal value between 0 and 1. The algorithm uses a pseudo-random generator, meaning the sequence appears random but follows a mathematical logic. Since the result is a small float, you multiply it to scale the value to your desired range. Finally, you apply functions like math.floor to round it down into a usable integer. You will frequently use this method for generating random IDs, simulating dice rolls, or picking a random winner. It is also vital for creating dynamic content like random quotes or shuffling arrays. Now let's look at the code step by step. First, we define a constant representing the lowest possible integer in our desired range. Then, next, we set the maximum value to define the upper boundary of our range. Then, we multiply the random float by the range size and add the minimum to shift the scale. Then, we apply math.floor to round the number down to the nearest whole integer. Then, this line prints the calculated random integer to the browser console for inspection. Finally, this comment indicates the possible result, showing the value is within range. That covers how to generate random numbers using Math.random. Next, we will look at rounding numbers with Math.round. Let me show you the JSON.parse method. This method is essential for converting text-based data into JavaScript objects. Whenever you receive data from an API, it usually arrives as a string. This method transforms that string into a structure you can actually use in your code. When you call JSON.parse, the JavaScript engine analyzes the string character by character. It validates the syntax to ensure it matches the strict JSON format standards. If valid, it maps the JSON values to corresponding JavaScript data types like strings, numbers, booleans, or arrays. Finally, it returns the constructed native JavaScript object to your program. If the syntax is invalid, it immediately throws a syntax error. You will primarily use this when handling responses from web servers or APIs. It is also useful for reading data stored in local storage. Essentially, use it whenever you need to convert serialized data back into a live object. Now let's look at the code step by step. First, we define a string variable that mimics data received from a web server. Then, next, we pass this string into the parse method to convert it into a usable object. Then, here, we log the entire resulting object to see the full data structure created. Then, finally, we access a specific property to prove that the data is now a real object. Finally, this shows the browser console displaying the parsed object structure with all its properties. That is how you use JSON.parse to handle data. Now, let's move on to the opposite method, JSON.stringify. We covered 5 powerful JavaScript methods today. If you found this helpful, please like and subscribe for more tutorials.